When people think of wartime survival, they imagine soldiers huddled under flimsy canvas tents, soaked by rain and battered by cold winds. But in the brutal reality of World War II, tents often failed long before the soldiers did. They ripped apart in storms, leaked under heavy downpours, and couldn't hold against freezing winds or scorching desert heat. On battlefields where every ounce of strength counted, fragile fabric became a liability. What kept men alive wasn't what they carried on their backs. It was what they built with their hands. Beneath the chaos and fire of war, soldiers discovered something simple yet profound. The ground beneath their feet could save their lives. Before nylon domes and factory-made tarps, the ultimate survival shelter was the dugout. It wasn't elegant, it wasn't comfortable, but it worked. When tents failed, the earth held. Soldiers learned to trust soil, not canvas. A hole in the ground, reinforced by nature, could outlast wind, rain, and shrapnel. It provided concealment, warmth, and security. It wasn't high-tech, it was human instinct, refined by experience. Across every front, from the frozen forests of Europe to the jungles of the Pacific, the same principle emerged: dig, insulate, drain, survive. The technique was deceptively simple. A soldier armed with nothing more than a shovel, or sometimes just a bayonet, would carve into the earth. A trench deep enough to sit or lie in was the beginning. The surrounding soil walls absorbed wind, muffled sound, and stopped fragments of debris. Overhead, a poncho or tarpaulin stretched between stakes formed a roof. Rain that once soaked through tents now ran harmlessly over the top. By adding a layer of brush, grass, or even compacted soil, they created insulation that kept the air dry and temperature stable. A dugout didn't blow away, didn't collapse in a gust, and didn't reveal itself easily from above. The earth became armor. In the wet, miserable winters of Europe, this mattered more than comfort. It meant survival. Soldiers in Normandy, the Ardennes, and the Italian Alps lined their dugouts with straw, pine branches, and cloth scraps to trap warmth. They dug narrow drainage channels around the perimeter, directing rainwater away instead of into their shelters. In summer, the same earth that trapped warmth in winter now cooled the air inside, giving men a refuge from heat. In the deserts of North Africa, where sandstorms shredded tents like paper, troops learned to carve sloping dugouts into dunes, layering them with canvas and palm fronds. In the Pacific, men battling endless rain built foxholes that became homes, muddy, cramped, but safe. The genius of the dugout was its universality. Every army discovered it, sometimes independently, sometimes through necessity. American GIs, German Wehrmacht troops, Japanese infantry, and Soviet soldiers all ended up relying on variations of the same technique. The method transcended language and ideology because it obeyed the same law of nature. The ground doesn't betray you. Even elite paratroopers, dropped behind enemy lines with almost nothing, carried small folding shovels. The first thing they did after landing wasn't setting up a tent, it was digging. In prolonged campaigns, simple foxholes evolved into elaborate living spaces. Soldiers reinforced the walls with planks or corrugated metal, added makeshift doors, and lined the interiors with dry grass for bedding. Some even rigged tiny stoves from ration tins and pipes. These semi-permanent dugouts resisted rain, shellfire, and time far better than fabric ever could. While tents were temporary, earth shelters became fortresses of endurance. It wasn't just practicality, it was psychology. A man inside a dugout felt grounded, literally and figuratively. Surrounded by earth, he was shielded from chaos. Rain hammered above, bombs shook the ground, but inside that narrow pocket of soil, he felt protected. The ground muffled the screams of shells and softened the echo of war. In a world where safety was an illusion, the dugout offered something close to peace. Today, this forgotten shelter trick carries lessons far beyond the battlefield. For survivalists, bushcrafters, and anyone preparing for life off the grid, it's, well, a reminder that the best technology might still be dirt and ingenuity. Modern tents, no matter how advanced, remain vulnerable to the same forces: wind, water, and weight. A dugout shelter, properly built, can outlast them all. The steps are timeless. First, Choose the right location, slightly elevated ground, never a valley or dry creek bed. You want water to flow away, not in. Second, dig deep enough that the earth rises at least a foot around you, high enough to block wind and deflect debris. Third, build your roof. Stretch a tarp, poncho, or even branches overhead, and weigh it down with soil or stones. Cover it with brush or grass for camouflage and insulation. Finally, insulate the floor. A layer of pine needles, straw, or dry leaves will keep you warmer and drier than any sleeping mat. Add small drainage channels around the edges, and you've recreated a design proven by millions of soldiers under fire. What makes the dugout so enduring is its adaptability. With nothing more than a shovel and time, you can create a structure that's waterproof, windproof, and nearly invisible. It doesn't depend on fuel or power grids, and it requires no advanced materials. It's pure practicality, a shelter born from human instinct and shaped by war's harshest lessons. The forgotten shelter trick of World War II isn't about nostalgia. It's about, well, rediscovering something simple, efficient, and nearly indestructible. It's about remembering that survival doesn't begin with what you buy. It begins with what you know. In the mud and blood of the 1940s, men learned to trust the oldest builder on Earth, the Earth itself. For those who still value preparedness and knowledge, this lesson remains timeless. You don't need fancy gear or expensive gadgets. You need skill, patience, and respect for the terrain, because when the world turns rough, whether by storm, blackout, or war, the ground beneath you might just be your greatest ally. So next time you walk across a patch of dirt, think of the soldiers who slept inside it. Think of the hands that shaped it into safety when nothing else stood. Their shelters weren't just holes in the ground, they were monuments to human resilience. The forgotten shelter trick of World War II is more than a story of the past. It's a blueprint for surviving whatever the future may bring.